Okay. Welcome to another episode of Coding and Philosophy. Tri just at the beginning almost dropped his coffee.
I'd almost dropped my coffee.
Yeah, but it didn't drop, so we're all good. Stay calm, ladies and gentlemen. Everything's fine. This time we're gonna be discussing about the sprint methodology.
The sprint methodology.
Which it's if you're gonna be working as a software developer in
the tech world.
Yeah, or the tech world, you're gonna have to work you're gonna be using a project management system or methodology. I think that's the right word. And sprint or agile methodology is one of the the words are so like.
Yeah, I was about to ask, is there any difference between the agile and sprint? Perhaps agile, from my understanding, is the name of the method and sprint is a component of it, but I may be wrong. Care to clarify me?
Honestly, I'm not sure. So I have experience working in a sprint/agile, whatever you want to call it, kind of system. But I'm actually writing an essay about it, just researching it now. But yeah, so the basis of that, it's a project management system, and it's made out of 3 parts, let's say, or like this is me reflecting on when I was working on a software development project. I'm gonna kind of explain what tools we used or how we did it.
Right. You have the experience of engaging with the experience yourself. So please bring me to awareness.
Yeah. So the way I was working on this SEO tool, and the way we coders worked, and that we had first a sprint planning day.
A planning day.
Every 2 weeks. So meaning during that sprint planning day, we would figure out, okay, what do we need to work on for the next 2 weeks? And then we would figure out some tasks. They weren't called tasks, but stories that we would need to create, or we need to build and improve the app. And then after those 2 weeks, after that planning session, we would know roughly what we're going to be doing for the next 2 weeks. And then at the end of 2 weeks, we would have something called a retrospective day.
After 2 weeks, you have the retrospective days.
And the point of that is to refine the process, kind of analyze what was done during the sprint, and you analyze, okay, what went well, what didn't go well, what did we like have a bunch of tasks which weren't done, why weren't they done? You analyze, and then you kind of figure out, okay, how can we make the next sprint better? And then you do it again and again and again. So the idea is that because every team has their own way of working, this is a method that you can use to figure out what's the best kind of way to work for that specific team, right? And the sprint planning sessions took about, I think, 2 hours, all in total that we did. So it's good to time box them, and you just have an objective. Okay, at the end of this session, we have enough task, and we know what we're gonna be doing for the next 2 weeks.
We will know what is the thing we will focus on for the next 2 weeks.
Exactly.
The objective of the sprint.
Exactly, the objective of the sprint. And as I was researching about it for this podcast, it's those sprint planning sessions. That first of all, they should be when the developers meet up with the product owner, or the one who knows the most about what the users want. So that you need that person who knows exactly, like, okay, what is it that the users want, and they get together, and the user, but the product owner argues for the value for the users. He wants as much value, excuse me, as he can possibly get for the users during this 2 weeks. And what the developers, they kind of argue for is the effort that they are going to be putting in, because only so much can be done based on the skill level and the technical level and the just physical ability or just of the developers. So it should be a negotiation between those two parties.
Can I ask, are there any other parties? Like, are there designers in the planning phase, or there are testers? Because in the tech department, there are not only developers, and in the product, there are not only product owners and engineers. There are other parties and stakeholders as well. Are they also involved in the planning phase?
Well, not ideally, I would say, because the point is that the product owner knows exactly, he or she gathers all this information from the designers and from the salespeople and from everyone and anything, and that the product owner knows exactly what do the users want. So
the product owner has already got information from the designers and the salespeople. Right. And perhaps the sprint planning only revolves with the builders and the product owners.
Yeah, and I like to use the term keep it simple. If you have, let's say, the designers there involved. I mean, not to say, like I said, every team has their own way of working. But personally, the kind of less people because it's really up to the developers to build it, right? And if you have designers there, then they're gonna have their voice, and it's, well, I mean, this, like I said, I can't say it's the wrong thing to have the designers there, but I would like to keep it simple.
And how about the testers? Because testers, I would also need to write test suite in parallel with the feature development. So is the tester comes into that planning, or maybe after the developer or the engineers are finalized and reach a consensus with the product owner having a feature in the mind, then the developers work with the tester and work in parallel.
Well, I would say...
Do you have testers?
Well, let's say anyone who knows what the user wants. I think the testers, well, they know what the user wants, right? Because they tested.
They tested.
So any type of voice is that. Because, well, here it comes where...
But testers are not developers. But testers try to break the things, and developers try to build the things.
Well, that's true, but they also know how to use the actual software or product. So, and they have tested it and know, well, yeah, they have a lot of information about how the users, or you can draw a lot of information about how the end users use the product.
So within your realm of experience, you only see in the planning phase that only the product owner and the developers are in there. So let's keep it simple and box our discussion surrounding there are only two parties in the planning, which are the product owner and the developers, or the developer lead.
Yeah, and ideally this would be a negotiation between those two parties, but so that when the product owner comes, and let's say you're the product owner and you come to this sprint planning meeting, you want a lot of things. You want this and you want that and you want those. But me as a developer, I have a responsibility, and I should say like, whoa, that's not that's not the, first of all, it's not possible, and I'm not capable of that. And, you cannot defend yourself. And the ideal result after that is that you come up with a plan that's realistic. But I mean, here's the problem oftentimes is that the product owner is sort of seen as the boss of that operation, where they shouldn't be, because it should be a negotiation and there shouldn't be any ranks within the sprint planning session. Everyone should kind of I think it would be good if everyone knew their roles. So you have the product owner and you have the developers, and you just support the other person. Let's say me as a developer, I support the product owner in his role, and he supports me in my role as a developer. So yeah, it often becomes an issue where the product owners, well, are in charge, and people want to appease to the product owners. They want to say, oh yes, we can do this, even though, well, I mean, personally, this is because of my personality. I tended to appease the product owner at the cost of, let's say, I wouldn't be realistic with my own capabilities as a developer. And
in terms of technical capacity, or in terms of delivery hour?
I think both.
Both. Oh.
So yeah, so that was that's something that I need to be vigilant about, is that I have a tendency to try to appease the product owner, which I've noticed this is something, well, just works for me, is that if I sit in a, let's say, power position, or if I sit with my arms crossed as the product owner is saying that, oh, we need this and this and this feature, you kind of sitting in a, let's say, this certain posture, it helps me kind of reflect, or kind of say that, okay, be direct, let's say, that, hey, no, that's not going to happen. If you say that, that's, we need to do that, that's unrealistic
for
to
me,
expect.
with my capacity, given my capacity, this is not realistic.
Exactly.
It's to put into context like that.
Exactly.
Yeah. But time estimation will forever be very hard to quantify, because there are so many complexities given any projects. There are so many unknowns that it can always slow down the progress.
Yeah.
But for the technical capacity, you are the very person who knows what you're capable of.
And well, the time management. So when we estimated the tasks, we didn't give an hourly, like this is how long it's gonna take. Here's what we did. We had a point system. So a good tool to use, because time is we all perceive it differently, and it's such a complex measurement, and you want to simplify as much as you can. So a good tip is that when you're creating those tasks, or aka stories during the sprint planning session, or you're deciding what to do, you you take something like the t-shirt sizes, and you put, okay, this task is about XS or XL, and this is XXL task. So basically, and then once the 2 weeks is up, you roughly now know how many XL tasks you can, or XXL tasks. I don't even know the t-shirt sizes. You roughly know how many of those you can take during one sprint, and how many XS tasks or S tasks you can take. So the idea is that you use a simplified version, a kind of a measurement that you exist out in the world that everyone knows, that's not as complex as time, and you use that to, well, estimate the tasks. Does it make sense?
It makes sense in a way to translate time into such coding like the XL and L. But if that definition changes, for example, XL can be modified into L, or later on when the capacity of the team improves, does it transform into a medium? The task that's seemingly L now become a medium-sized task.
Well, you kind of, as you learned how to use let's say during the next sprint, the same developer who said that the last task, which was similar, was an Excel, might now, because of the increased knowledge, might say that okay, this task is S.
Yes.
So it doesn't really change during the sprint.
It doesn't change during the sprint, but
And it
then
shouldn't.
the definition of the complexity of the task keeps updating.
Yeah, it's all a reiterative process. And it's really, and of course, it's really complex. But, you know, you need some sort of project management methodology. And with that, I think we can end the podcast. And wow, I think we need to do a part 2 because there was a lot of things I still wanted to say.
Of course, Agile has been an historical methodology process. There's no way we can cover it into 50 minutes.
Exactly.
Yeah,
But
perhaps next time we can cover the user stories. You have been mentioning it, but we haven't got time to discuss about it. So let's save that for next week on user stories.
exactly. And for now, we can say goodbye to you guys and keep on philosophizing.
And coding.
Exactly. Bye.
Goodbye.